The champagne flute trembled in Celeste Morgan's hand as she stared at the cream-colored envelope that had just arrived by courier. Her name was written in elegant calligraphy across the front, but it was the return address that made her breath catch in her throat. Marcus Whitfield, her ex-husband, the man who had walked out on her 3 years ago when she was 6 months pregnant, leaving her with nothing but a broken heart and a stack of unpaid bills in their tiny Atlanta apartment. Inside the envelope was a wedding invitation. Marcus was getting married to Vivienne St. Clair, the daughter of a prominent real estate mogul, and the ceremony would take place at the prestigious Chateau Elan in Brazelton, Georgia. But what made Celeste's hands shake wasn't just the invitation itself. It was the handwritten note tucked inside, written in Marcus's distinctive scrawl. "Celeste, I hope you can make it. I'd love for Vivienne to meet the woman I used to be married to. It would mean so much to show her how far I've come. Please don't feel pressured to bring a gift. I know things have been hard for you." The condescension dripped from every word. Celeste could picture Marcus's smug face as he wrote it, probably laughing with Vivienne about the poor, struggling single mother he'd left behind. Her sister Nadine, who was visiting from New York, snatched the invitation from her hands and read it aloud, her voice rising with each word. "That's sorry excuse for a man," Nadine exploded, pacing across Celeste's modest living room. "He wants to humiliate you, Celeste. He wants to parade you in front of his new rich wife and all their fancy friends like some kind of trophy from his past. Like proof of how much better his life is now." Celeste sank into her worn sofa, the invitation falling to her lap. Nadine was right, of course. This was Marcus's ultimate power move. 3 years ago, he had been a struggling pharmaceutical sales representative with big dreams and a bigger ego. When his career wasn't advancing fast enough, he'd blamed Celeste for holding him back. He'd called her unambitious, said her job as an elementary school teacher was small-minded, and claimed that her pregnancy was a trap to keep him from reaching his potential. She remembered the day he left like it was yesterday. She'd been folding baby clothes in their bedroom, her belly round and heavy, when he'd walked in with 2 suitcases already packed. "I can't do this, Celeste," he'd said, barely able to look at her. "I've got an opportunity in New York. A friend's father owns a major firm, and they want me. I'm sorry, but I can't turn this down. Not even for you. Not even for that baby." He'd walked out while she was still processing his words, too shocked to cry, too hurt to beg. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later. He'd offered her nothing in the settlement, claiming he had no assets to split. She'd signed them in the hospital 3 days after giving birth to their triplets alone. 3 beautiful babies, Zion, Amara, and Malachi. 3 miracles that Marcus would never know. Now, staring at this invitation, Celeste felt something stir inside her that hadn't awakened in 3 long years. It wasn't quite anger, though there was plenty of that. It was something sharper, clearer. It was dignity. It was pride. It was the realization that Marcus Whitfield had no idea who she'd become in his absence. What Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't have known because he'd never bothered to ask, was that Celeste's life had transformed in ways that would have been impossible if he'd stayed. 2 months after the triplets were born, while she was struggling to manage 3 newborns on a teacher's salary, her childhood friend Jeremiah Washington had reached out. Jeremiah had become a successful tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, and he'd been following an education technology concept that Celeste had mentioned years ago during a casual conversation at their high school reunion. "Shabern, you remember that idea you had about personalized learning algorithms for struggling students?" Jeremiah had asked during their phone call. "I can't stop thinking about it. I want to invest in it. I want you to develop it." Celeste had laughed at first, thinking it was charity, but Jeremiah was serious. He believed in her vision of creating an adaptive learning platform that could identify each student's unique learning style and adjust curriculum accordingly. With his initial investment and her educational expertise, they'd launched LearnPath Technologies. The platform had started small, piloting in 3 Atlanta schools. But within 18 months, it had exploded across Georgia, then the Southeast, then nationally. Now LearnPath was valued at $47 million, and Celeste owned 60% of it. Well, she'd moved out of that cramped apartment into a beautiful home in Buckhead with enough bedrooms for each of her children a home office, and even a playroom that looked like something out of a magazine. She drove a Mercedes SUV for practical purposes, shuttling 3 active toddlers to daycare and activities. But she'd also, somewhat impulsively, purchased a vintage Rolls-Royce Phantom last month. It was cream-colored with cognac leather interior, a gorgeous piece of automotive history that she'd bought at an estate sale simply because she could. But Celeste hadn't flaunted her success. She wasn't on social media much. Her company's website listed Jeremiah as CEO and kept her role as co-founder and chief education officer relatively low-key. She'd given interviews to education journals, but always focusing on the platform, never on her personal story. She'd built her empire quietly, focused on her children and her mission to transform education. She had no interest in proving anything to anyone, especially not to Marcus Whitfield, until now. "You're not actually thinking of going, are you?" Nadine asked, interrupting Celeste's thoughts. Her sister was staring at her with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Celeste picked up the invitation again, running her fingers over the embossed lettering. "Actually, I think I am." "Are you out of your mind? Why would you give that man the satisfaction?" "Because," Celeste said slowly, a smile forming on her lips, "he thinks he knows how this will go. He thinks I'll either not show up, which lets him tell everyone his ex-wife was too embarrassed or too poor to attend, or I'll show up looking defeated, which lets him look like the hero who escaped an unfortunate situation. Either way, he wins in his narrative." "Okay, but how does you actually going there change that?" Celeste stood up, walking to the window that overlooked her manicured backyard, where an elaborate playset stood. Her children's toys were scattered across the grass. "Because I'm not the woman he left anymore, Nadine. And it's time he knew that. Not because I need his validation, but because I need him to understand that leaving me was the biggest mistake of his life. And I need him to meet his children." Nadine's eyes widened. "You're going to bring Zion, Amara, and Malachi? They're his children, whether he wants to acknowledge it or not. He's never paid a dime in child support, never called, never sent a birthday card. Those babies are 3 years old. Ari and their father has never even seen their faces. If Marcus Whitfield wants to parade his new life in front of me, then I'm going to show him exactly what he threw away." Over the next 3 weeks, Celeste planned her appearance at Marcus's wedding with the precision of a military operation. She hired Dominique Laurent, Atlanta's most exclusive fashion stylist, who dressed celebrities and socialites. Dominique understood the assignment immediately. "We're not going for flashy," Dominique explained, pulling elegant options from her carefully curated collection. "We're going for undeniable. We want everyone in that room to wonder who you are before they realize you're the ex-wife. Ooh, we want them to think you're foreign royalty or a visiting dignitary." They settled on a stunning floor-length gown in deep emerald silk that complemented Celeste's rich brown skin tone perfectly. It was elegant, expensive-looking without being ostentatious, with a subtle train that whispered sophistication. Her jewelry would be minimal. Diamond studs that Jeremiah had given her as a closing gift when LearnPath hit its first $10 million in revenue, and a delicate diamond bracelet that had belonged to her grandmother. For the triplets, she commissioned custom outfits from a children's boutique designer. Little Malachi would wear a tiny tailored suit in charcoal gray. Amara would wear a dress in blush pink with delicate embroidery. Zion would wear a navy suit with a bow tie. They would look absolutely adorable. And more importantly, they would be undeniably, unmistakably Marcus's children. All 3 had inherited his distinctive features, those same bright eyes, that same dimpled smile, that same rich skin tone. The morning of the wedding, Celeste woke up with butterflies in her stomach. Her mother, Lorraine, had come to help with the children, and Nadine was there for moral support. As Celeste got ready, applying her makeup with steady hands despite her nerves, her mother kept up a running commentary. "You don't have to do this, baby girl," Lorraine said, fastening the clasp on Celeste's bracelet. "That man doesn't deserve to even see you, let alone those beautiful grandbabies of mine." "I know, Mama," Celeste replied, looking at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was powerful, polished, and completely transformed from the heartbroken teacher Marcus had left behind. "But I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing this for me, and for Zion, Amara, and Malachi. They deserve to have their existence acknowledged, even if their father chooses not to be in their lives. The children were excited about the fancy party they were attending, though they had no idea of the significance. At 3 years old, they were bright, energetic, and well-behaved when they needed to be. Celeste had taught them well. As she loaded them into the Rolls-Royce with its spacious back seat easily accommodating 3 car seats, Nadine whistled low. Girl, when you show up in this, every jaw in that venue is going to hit the floor. That's the idea, Celeste said with a smile, though her heart was pounding. Now the drive to Chateau Elan took about 45 minutes. Celeste used the time to center herself, listening to the children chatter in the back seat about the pretty car and the fancy party. Nadine sat beside her in the passenger seat, occasionally reaching over to squeeze her hand in support. As they pulled up to the venue, Celeste could see that Marcus had spared no expense. The chateau was decorated with thousands of white roses and elegant drapery. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Mercedes, BMWs, Teslas, a few Porsches. The Rolls-Royce still stood out among them, a vintage beauty that commanded attention. A valet approached, his eyes widening as he took in the car. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Welcome to the Whitfield St. Clair wedding." Celeste handed him the keys with a gracious smile. Thank you." She'd timed their arrival perfectly, not so early that she'd have to make small talk with too many people, but not so late that she'd create a dramatic interruption. The ceremony was set to begin in 15 minutes. Guests were still milling about in the garden where the wedding would take place, sipping champagne and admiring the lavish decorations. As Celeste walked toward the garden with a triplet holding each of her hands and Nadine carrying Amara, who was getting shy, heads began to turn. The emerald dress moved beautifully as she walked, and the children looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread. People whispered, trying to figure out who she was. "Is that someone from Vivian's family? I don't recognize her. Maybe she's from Marcus's New York office? Look at those beautiful children. They must be important guests." Celeste held her head high, a serene smile on her face as she made her way through the crowd. And then she saw him. Marcus was standing near the altar area, adjusting his bow tie and laughing with his groomsmen. He looked good, she had to admit. Success suited him. He'd filled out a bit, traded his off-the-rack suits for custom tailoring, and carried himself with the confidence of a man who'd made it. But when he turned and his eyes landed on Celeste, every bit of that confidence evaporated. His face went through a series of expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, shock, and something that might have been fear. His mouth literally fell open as he took in the elegant woman in the emerald dress, the 3 impeccably dressed toddlers, and the general aura of success and dignity that Celeste radiated. One of his groomsmen, a tall man named Devon, whom Celeste vaguely remembered from their marriage, leaned over and whispered something. Marcus nodded numbly, unable to take his eyes off Celeste and the children. Celeste found seats in the back row, not wanting to make a scene but wanting to be visible. She settled the children on either side of her, with Nadine helping to keep them entertained with quiet toys and snacks. Several guests nearby couldn't help but stare, especially at the triplets, who were undeniably adorable and bore such a striking resemblance to the groom. A woman in an expensive-looking lavender dress leaned over. "Excuse me, I don't think we've met. I'm Patricia, Vivian's aunt. Are you family?" "Not exactly," Celeste replied with a warm smile. "Anna, I'm Celeste. Marcus invited me. We have history together." "Oh, how lovely, and these precious children?" "These are my triplets, Zion, Amara, and Malachi. They're 3. Patricia's eyes flickered between the children and the altar where Marcus stood, and Celeste could see the moment the resemblance registered. The woman's smile became strained. "How absolutely lovely," she repeated, but her tone had changed completely. The wedding began right on schedule. Vivian was beautiful. There was no denying it. She wore a custom gown that probably cost more than most people's cars, and she walked down the aisle with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world. Marcus watched her approach with genuine affection in his eyes, and for a moment, Celeste felt a pang of something. Not jealousy exactly. Maybe it was just the ghost of what they'd once had, before his ambition and selfishness destroyed it. But then Malachi tugged on her hand and whispered, "Mama, when do we get cake?" And Celeste smiled, remembering what truly mattered. The ceremony proceeded without incident. Celeste watched politely, her face neutral. It was only when the officiant said, "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace," that Malachi chose that exact moment to loudly declare, "I need to go potty." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. Celeste quickly stood, whispering apologies as she took Malachi's hand to lead him out. As they passed the altar, Marcus's eyes followed them, his face pale. Celeste didn't look at him, focused entirely on her son's needs, but she knew he'd seen. And he'd really seen the children now, up close, and there was no way he could deny what was written all over their faces. When Celeste returned with Malachi a few minutes later, the ceremony was wrapping up. Marcus and Vivian were pronounced husband and wife, and everyone applauded as they kissed and walked back down the aisle. As they passed Celeste's row, Vivian's eyes landed on her, then on the children, and Celeste saw a flash of confusion cross the bride's face. The reception was held in the chateau's grand ballroom, an opulent space with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the vineyard. Celeste debated leaving after the ceremony, but something made her stay. Maybe it was the need to see this through completely. Maybe it was the desire to ensure Marcus fully understood what he'd missed. So she found a table toward the back and settled the children with coloring books and activities that Nadine had wisely packed. Other guests kept glancing their way, the whispers growing louder. By now, enough people had noticed the resemblance between the triplets and Marcus that speculation was running wild. It was during the cocktail hour when Marcus finally approached their table. He looked nervous, almost sick, his earlier confidence completely shattered. Vivian was across the room talking with some guests, but she kept glancing over at her new husband with concern. "Celeste," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper, "can we talk? Privately?" "Anything you need to say to me can be said right here," Celeste replied calmly, gesturing to Nadine to keep the children distracted. Marcus glanced at the triplets. Anna and Celeste saw his hands shaking. Are those your children?" "Yes, Marcus. These are Zion, Amara, and Malachi Whitfield Morgan, your son and daughters. They're 3 years old. You've never met them because you've never bothered to ask about them." "I didn't. You never told me you had triplets. You thought what? That I had one baby and that was it? You never called, Marcus. You never checked. You sent divorce papers to the hospital where I was recovering from giving birth, and then you disappeared completely. You never paid child support. You never sent a birthday card. These children don't even know they have a father." Marcus's face had gone from pale to ashen. Several nearby guests had stopped pretending not to listen and were openly staring now. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. And there was almost accusation in his tone. Celeste laughed, a sound without humor. "Tell you? I tried to reach you for months after they were born, Marcus. Your number was disconnected. Your email bounced back. You made sure I couldn't find you. And honestly, after a while, I stopped trying. These children deserve better than a father who sees them as an inconvenience." "That's not fair, Celeste. I had opportunities. I had a career to build." "And you built it," Celeste acknowledged. "Congratulations on your success, Marcus. Truly. But don't you dare act like you're the victim here. You made your choices, and I made mine. The difference is, my choices led me to become the mother that these 3 beautiful souls deserve." Before Marcus could respond, Vivian appeared at his elbow, her smile bright but her eyes sharp. "Marcus." "Oh, darling, who are your friends?" Vivian asked, her voice carrying the kind of sweetness that barely masked suspicion. Marcus looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "Vivian, this is Celeste, my ex-wife." "Oh," Vivian's smile didn't falter, but her grip on Marcus's arm tightened. "How wonderful that you could make it. Marcus mentioned he'd invited you. He wanted to show there were no hard feelings about the divorce." "How gracious of him," Celeste said smoothly, meeting Vivian's eyes directly. "And congratulations on your marriage. The ceremony was beautiful." "Thank you. And these children, are they yours?" "Yes. These are my triplets, Zion, Amara, and Malachi." Vivian's eyes flickered over the children, and Celeste could see the exact moment the resemblance hit her. The bride's perfectly made-up face went rigid, her smile becoming a frozen mask. She looked at Marcus, then back at the children, then at Marcus again. Triplets, Vivian repeated slowly. How old are they? 3, Celeste said. They were born about 4 months after Marcus and I divorced. The silence that followed was deafening. Around them, conversations had stopped. Everyone within earshot was watching this drama unfold. Vivian's father, Gerald St. Clair, a imposing man in his 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, had noticed the commotion and was making his way over. Is there a problem here? Gerald asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. No problem at all, Celeste said pleasantly. I was just introducing Marcus to his children, and he's never met them before. Gerald's eyebrows shot up. He looked at Marcus, then at the triplets, and Celeste could practically see him doing the math. Marcus, would you like to explain this? Marcus seemed incapable of speech. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. It was Vivian who spoke, her voice shaking slightly despite her attempt at composure. You have 3 children? 3 children that you never mentioned? Not once in the 2 years we've been together? I didn't know about the triplets, Marcus stammered. I mean, I knew Celeste was pregnant when I left, but I didn't know she had 3 babies. I thought, you thought what? Gerald interrupted, his voice cold. That you could just abandon your pregnant wife and pretend those children didn't exist? And you didn't think this was information my daughter deserved to have before she married you? Mr. St. Clair, I can explain. I don't think you can, Gerald said, his disgust evident. Vivian, we need to talk. Now. As Vivian was led away by her father, she shot one last look at Marcus that could have frozen fire. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Guests pulled out their phones, some discreetly filming, others texting frantically. Marcus stood frozen, the center of attention in the worst possible way. Nadine leaned over to Celeste and whispered, Girl, I think you just blew up his whole wedding. But Celeste wasn't finished. She stood, smoothing down her emerald dress, and addressed Marcus directly. I didn't come here to ruin your wedding, Marcus. I came because you invited me, and because I wanted you to see what you gave up. Not just me, but them. She gestured to the triplets, who were blissfully unaware of the adult drama unfolding around them. These children are incredible. Zion loves dinosaurs and wants to be a paleontologist. Amara can already read at a first-grade level. Malachi has your mother's musical talent. He can play simple melodies on the piano by ear. Marcus's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the children, really looked at them for the first time. They're smart, kind, funny, and full of life, Celeste continued, and they have all of this without you. They don't need you, Marcus. They have me, and they have my family, and they have a life full of love and opportunity. I built that for them, not you. Celeste, I'm not telling you this to hurt you, she said, her voice softer now. I'm telling you this because you need to understand something. When you walked out on us, you thought you were choosing success over struggle. You thought you were choosing opportunity over obligation. But what you really chose was emptiness over love, money over meaning. And looking at you now, at this beautiful wedding that's falling apart around you, I think part of you is starting to realize that. Marcus sank into a nearby chair, his head in his hands. What have I done? He whispered. Celeste knelt down so she was at eye level with him, her voice gentle but firm. You made choices, Marcus. We all make choices. But choices have consequences, and you're living with yours right now. The question is, what are you going to do going forward? Before Marcus could answer, Vivian returned with her father and several other members of the St. Clair family. Her eyes were red, but her chin was held high. She looked at Marcus with a mixture of hurt and anger that Celeste recognized all too well. We need to talk, Vivian said to Marcus. Privately, now. As Marcus stood to follow his new bride, he looked back at Celeste one last time. Can I see them again? The kids? Can I get to know them? Celeste considered this carefully. That's not a decision I'm making today, Marcus. If you're serious about being in their lives, you'll need to prove it over time. You'll need to show up consistently. You'll need to go through the proper legal channels for custody and support. You'll need to put their needs ahead of your convenience. Can you do that? Marcus nodded slowly. I want to try. And I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try. Then we'll see, Celeste said. But understand this. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for them, if and only if it's in their best interest. They don't need a father who shows up when it's convenient and disappears when it's not. As Marcus was led away by Vivian and her family, the ballroom buzzed with energy. Celeste could hear fragments of conversation all around her. Did you see those children? They're definitely his. I can't believe he never told her. What kind of man? 3 babies, can you imagine? And he just left her. That woman in the green dress, she handled that with such grace. Nadine touched Celestine's arm. I think we should probably go now. You've made your point and then some. Celeste nodded, gathering up the children and their things. As they prepared to leave, several guests approached her. Some were people she'd never met. Others were acquaintances from her marriage to Marcus, who she hadn't seen in years. Patricia, Vivian's aunt, who had spoken to her earlier, stopped them on their way out. Ms. Morgan, I just wanted to say, what you did here today took incredible courage, and those children are absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Celeste said graciously. I don't know if this matters to you, Patricia continued, lowering her voice, but I don't think this marriage is going to survive the night. Vivian is devastated, and her father is furious. The prenuptial agreement they signed has a clause about material misrepresentation. If Marcus failed to disclose children, why the marriage can be annulled and he gets nothing. Celeste felt a flutter of something in her chest. Not satisfaction exactly. Maybe it was just the recognition that karma had a way of working things out. That's between them, she said. I hope they figure out what's best for everyone involved. As they walked back to the Rolls-Royce, the children chattering about the fancy party and asking why they had to leave before cake, Celeste felt Nadine's arm around her shoulders. You okay? Her sister asked. Yeah, Celeste said, surprised to find that she meant it. Yeah, I really am. The valet brought the Rolls-Royce around, and as Celeste buckled the children into their car seats, she noticed Marcus standing in one of the shadow's windows watching them. Even from a distance, she could see the devastation on his face. A part of her felt sorry for him, but a larger part recognized that this was a pain of his own making, a consequence of his own choices. As they drove away from the chateau, the sun setting behind them in brilliant shades of orange and gold, Malachi piped up from the back seat. Mama, why was that man crying? Celeste glanced at him in the rearview mirror, at his sweet, innocent face that looked so much like his father's. Because, baby, he just realized he made a big mistake a long time ago. And sometimes it takes a long time for people to understand the consequences of their mistakes. Oh, Malachi said, apparently satisfied with this answer. Can we get ice cream on the way home? Celeste laughed, the tension finally draining from her shoulders. Yes, baby. Why, we can definitely get ice cream. As they drove through the Georgia countryside, Nadine turned to her. So what now? Do you think he'll actually try to be in their lives? Honestly, I don't know, Celeste admitted. Part of me hopes he will for the kids' sake. They deserve to know their father if he can be the father they need. But another part of me knows that people don't change that easily. Marcus has always been selfish, always been focused on what benefits him. Being a parent requires selflessness, sacrifice, putting someone else's needs ahead of your own wants. I'm not sure he's capable of that, but you're willing to give him a chance? I'm willing to let him prove himself, Celeste corrected. There's a difference. I'm not going to make it easy for him. He's going to have to work for it, show up consistently. He's go through the legal process, pay the child support he should have been paying all along. Actually get to know these kids as people, not just as accessories to assuage his guilt. And if he doesn't, Celeste shrugged, then nothing changes. The kids and I go on living our lives just like we have been. We don't need him, Nadine. We never have. Everything I've built, everything they have, I created from nothing after he left. If Marcus wants to be part of this family, he's going to have to earn it. They stopped at a local ice cream shop that the kids loved, and as Celeste watched her triplets argue over which flavors to choose, she felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. 3 years ago, when Marcus had walked out, she'd thought her life was over. She'd thought she would never recover from that betrayal, that abandonment, now it's that crushing rejection. But she'd been wrong. She hadn't just recovered, she'd thrived. She'd built a company that was changing education for millions of students. She'd raised 3 incredible children who were healthy, happy, and loved. She'd created a life that was rich in all the ways that mattered, surrounded by family and friends who genuinely cared about her. Marcus, for all his success, for all his money and status, was facing the collapse of his marriage on his wedding day. He was confronting the reality of three children he'd never known, opportunities for connection and love that he'd squandered. He'd won the career success he'd wanted so badly, but at what cost? Celeste had learned something crucial in the years since their divorce. Success wasn't measured in dollars or status symbols or impressive job titles. When success was measured in love, given and received, in relationships nurtured, in the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of who you'd become. By that measure, Celeste was far more successful than Marcus could ever hope to be. As they drove home, ice cream finished and children starting to doze off in their car seats, Celeste's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number she didn't recognize, but the message made it clear who it was from. Celeste, this is Jeremiah. I just got a very interesting call from someone who was at a wedding today and recognized you. Apparently you made quite an impression. Want to tell me what happened? Celeste smiled and handed the phone to Nadine. Can you text him back and say I'll call him tomorrow? It's a long story. Girl, oh, that's the understatement of the century. Nadine laughed, typing out the response. When they arrived home, Celeste's mother was waiting on the porch, eager to hear how everything had gone. As Celeste carried sleeping Malachi inside while Nadine handled the girls, Lorraine pulled her daughter into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, baby, Lorraine whispered. So proud. Thanks, Mama, Celeste replied, blinking back unexpected tears. Later that night, after the children were bathed and tucked into their beds, after Nadine and her mother had finally stopped asking questions and gone to their own rooms, Celeste stood in her home office, looking at the framed photo on her desk. It was a picture of her with Zion, Amara, and Malachi on their first birthday, all of them covered in cake and laughing. She'd been so exhausted that day, running on 3 hours of sleep and too much coffee, but she'd never been happier. That photo represented everything Marcus had missed, everything he'd chosen to walk away from. Her phone rang, startling her out of her reverie. It was nearly 11 o'clock. She glanced at the screen and saw an unknown number with a New York area code. Against her better judgment, she answered. Hello? Celeste, it's Marcus. His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. Please don't hang up. I know I have no right to call you, especially not tonight, but I needed to hear your voice. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Celeste sat down in her desk chair, processing this unexpected call. Where's Vivienne? Gone, she left. The marriage was annulled about an hour ago. Her father's lawyers were very efficient. He laughed bitterly. It turns out there was a clause in the prenuptial agreement about material misrepresentation. Failing to disclose children qualified, so now I'm divorced twice in one day, technically speaking. I'm sorry that happened, Celeste said, and she meant it. She hadn't wanted to destroy his marriage, just to make him see what he'd thrown away. Don't be. I deserved it. I deserved all of it. Marcus took a shaky breath. Celeste, seeing you today, seeing those kids, our kids, it broke something open in me. Or maybe it broke something that needed to be broken. I've spent 3 years telling myself I made the right choice, that I had to focus on my career, that I couldn't let anything hold me back. But the truth is, I was just scared. Scared of what? Of failing, of not being good enough, of being trapped in mediocrity. He paused. My father left when I was 7. Did you know that? Just walked out one day and never came back. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, and I watched her struggle every single day. I swore I would never be that guy, never be the struggling father who couldn't provide. So when you got pregnant and my career wasn't where I wanted to be, I panicked. I convinced myself that if I stayed, I'd end up like my dad, resenting you and the baby, failing at everything. So you left instead, Celeste said softly, and became exactly like your father anyway. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy with the weight of that truth. When Marcus finally spoke again, his voice was broken. I know, God, Celeste, I know. And I can't undo it. I can't get back those 3 years. I can't meet my children for the first time again. I missed their births, their first words, their first steps. I missed everything that matters. Yes, you did, Celeste agreed. There was no point in sugarcoating it. But I want to try to make it right. I know I can't undo the past, but maybe I can be better going forward. If you'll let me. If you'll give me that chance. Celeste stood and walked to the window, looking out at her peaceful neighborhood. Marcus, I need you to understand something. This isn't about what I'll let you do. This is about what's best for Zion, Amara, and Malachi. They're happy, healthy, well-adjusted children. They have a stable home, a loving family, and everything they need. I've worked very hard to give them that stability. I know you have, and I know I have no right to disrupt that. But they also deserve to know their father. One, if their father is capable of being present and consistent and putting their needs first. Can you do that, Marcus? Can you really do that? Because showing up once or twice and then disappearing again when it gets hard or inconvenient would be worse than not showing up at all. I can do it, Marcus said, his voice firm with conviction. I will do it, whatever it takes. I'll go through the legal process. I'll pay child support, back pay for all 3 years, plus ongoing support. I'll attend counseling if you want me to. I'll prove to you that I'm serious about this. It's not about proving anything to me, Celeste reminded him. It's about showing up for them. You're right. You're absolutely right. He paused. Celeste, can I ask you something? When did everything change for you? When I left, well, you were teaching elementary school. Now you show up to my wedding in a Rolls-Royce, looking like you just stepped off a magazine cover, and people are whispering about who you are. What happened? Celeste smiled to herself. Life happened, Marcus. After you left, I had to figure out how to survive as a single mother of triplets on a teacher's salary. It forced me to think creatively, to take risks I never would have taken if I'd been comfortable. You remember Jeremiah Washington from our high school reunion? The tech guy? Yeah, I remember. You two talked for hours about education and technology. Well, he remembered too. He called me a couple of months after the triplets were born and asked if I wanted to develop that adaptive learning platform idea I'd mentioned. I thought he was joking at first, or offering charity. But he was serious. He invested in my vision, and together we built LearnPath Technologies. She heard Marcus's sharp intake of breath. Wait, LearnPath? That's you? That's your company? 60% mine, yes. Jeremiah owns the other 40%. Celeste, LearnPath is valued at, the last I heard it was worth tens of millions of dollars, and it's being used in thousands of schools across the country. 47 million at last valuation, Celeste confirmed. And yes, we're in over 8,000 schools in 43 states. We're in talks to expand internationally next year. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. So when I invited you to my wedding to show you how far I'd come, I'd already come further, Celeste finished. But Marcus, I didn't build this company to show you up or to prove you wrong. I built it because I wanted to make a difference in education and because I needed to provide for my children. Your opinion of me or my success never factored into it. I really screwed up, didn't I? Yes, Celeste said simply. But the question now isn't about what you screwed up in the past. It's about what you're going to do in the future. Are you really ready to be a father? Not just in name, but in action? Because those kids don't need a part-time father who shows up when it's convenient. They need someone who will be there for school plays and sick days and homework struggles and all the mundane, difficult, beautiful parts of parenting. I want to be that person, Marcus said. I know I haven't been. I know I have no track record to point to. But I want to be that person, Celeste. Please give me the chance to try. Celeste thought about the children sleeping peacefully in their beds, about the life she'd built for them, about the responsibility she had to protect them from disappointment and pain. But she also thought about the possibility that they could have a relationship with their father, that they didn't have to grow up with the same abandonment issues Marcus had carried from his own childhood. Here's what's going to happen, she said finally. Tomorrow you're going to call my attorney. Her name is Simone Blackwell, and I'll text you her number. You're going to work with her to establish legal paternity, set up a child support agreement with back pay, and create a custody arrangement that starts very slowly. Maybe supervised visits once a month to start, kept building up gradually if and only if you prove reliable. Okay, yes, whatever you think is best. And Marcus, if you miss even one visit, if you're late even once without a very good reason, if you show any sign that this is about easing your guilt rather than genuinely connecting with your children, I will shut it down immediately. I will not let you hurt them the way your father hurt you. Do you understand? I understand. I won't let you down. I won't let them down. We'll see, Celeste said. Actions speak louder than words, Marcus. Show me through your actions. After they hung up, Celeste sat in the quiet of her office for a long time, processing everything that had happened. The day had been surreal from the moment she'd decided to attend the wedding to the dramatic confrontation to this late-night phone call. She felt emotionally exhausted, but also strangely at peace. She'd confronted her past and emerged stronger. She'd shown Marcus exactly what he'd lost without being cruel or vindictive. She'd maintained her dignity and her grace even in a situation designed to humiliate her. And now she'd opened the door for her children to potentially have a relationship with their father while setting clear boundaries to protect them. The next morning, Celeste woke to find her phone flooded with messages. Apparently, several guests at the wedding had posted about the incident on social media, and it had gone viral overnight. There were tweets, Instagram posts, and even a TikTok video someone had discreetly filmed of Marcus's reaction when he first saw the triplets. Most of the comments were supportive of Celeste. "Arwen, the way she handled herself with such class and dignity," one post read. "She didn't need to cause a scene. She just showed up and let the truth speak for itself." Another comment that had thousands of likes said, "This is what real success looks like. Not the fancy wedding or the status, but the woman who builds an empire while raising triplets alone and still has the grace to give her deadbeat ex a chance to know his kids." There were also, inevitably, negative comments. Some accused her of deliberately sabotaging the wedding, of being vindictive and cruel. But those were in the minority, and Celeste found she didn't care much either way. She learned long ago that you couldn't control what people thought of you. You could only control your own actions and live according to your own values. Nadine appeared in her doorway with 2 cups of coffee. "Girl, you're famous. Have you seen what people are saying?" "Some of it," Celeste acknowledged, accepting the coffee gratefully. "But I'm trying not to pay too much attention. That's not why I did this." "I know, but still, it's pretty vindicating to see so many people recognizing how amazingly you handled that whole situation." Nadine sat on the edge of the bed. "So what happens now? Is Marcus really going to step up?" "He says he wants to. We'll see if he actually does." Celeste filled her sister in on the late-night phone call and the plan going forward. Nadine listened thoughtfully. "You know, I have to say, I'm impressed with how you're handling this. A lot of women would use this opportunity to shut him out completely, and no one would blame you. Well, but you're thinking about what's best for the kids, even if that means giving him a chance he doesn't really deserve." "They deserve the opportunity to know their father," Celeste said. "If he can be the father they need, then they should have that relationship. But I'm not going to force it, and I'm not going to sacrifice their emotional well-being to make it happen. He has to earn it." Over the next few weeks, Marcus proved surprisingly committed to the process. He called Simone Blackwell the very next day and immediately signed paperwork establishing paternity and agreeing to child support with full back pay. The check he sent for 3 years of missed payments was substantial enough to fully fund college accounts for all 3 children. He also started therapy, which he mentioned during one of their brief phone check-ins. "Hold on, I'm working with a therapist who specializes in family issues and abandonment," he told Celeste. "I need to deal with my own childhood stuff before I can be a good father. I see that now." Celeste was cautiously optimistic. She arranged for the first supervised visit to take place at a child-friendly indoor play space in Atlanta. She, Nadine, and the children arrived early. The triplets were excited about the special play date, but had no idea of its significance. When Marcus arrived, Celeste saw immediately that he was nervous. He dressed casually in jeans and a nice shirt, and he carried 3 wrapped presents. He stopped a few feet away from them, his eyes drinking in the sight of his children. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," Celeste replied. She knelt down next to the triplets. "Zion, Amara, Malachi, this is Marcus. He's a friend of Mommy's who wanted to meet you and play with you today. Can you say hello?" The children, naturally outgoing and friendly, chorused hellos. Malachi immediately noticed the wrapped presents. "Are those for us?" Marcus laughed, a slightly nervous sound. Yeah, buddy, they are. I brought you each something I thought you might like. The presents were thoughtful, clearly chosen with care. For Zion, a detailed dinosaur encyclopedia with pop-up illustrations. For Amara, a collection of early reader books with diverse characters. For Malachi, a small keyboard with different instrument sounds. Celeste was impressed and a little surprised. Marcus had clearly listened when she told him about their individual interests at the wedding. The visit lasted 2 hours. And Celeste and Nadine stayed close but gave Marcus space to interact with the children. He was awkward at first, clearly uncertain how to talk to 3-year-olds, but he tried. He got down on the floor with them, pushed them on the swings, helped them navigate the climbing structures. Several times, Celeste caught him watching them with an expression of wonder and regret so profound it almost hurt to see. At one point, Amara fell and scraped her knee. She ran crying to Celeste, who was already moving to comfort her. But Marcus got there first, kneeling down and gently examining the minor injury. It's okay, sweetheart, he said softly. It's just a little scrape. See? You're going to be just fine. You're very brave. Amara sniffled, looking up at him with those big eyes that were so much like his own. It hurts. I know it does. But you know what? Every scrape and bruise is proof that you're out there living life, having adventures, being brave enough to climb and play and explore. So this little scrape is actually pretty cool when you think about it. Amara considered this, her tears slowing. Really? Really? It's like a badge of honor for adventurers. She smiled then, mollified, and ran back to play. Marcus stood, and Celeste saw his hands were shaking. When he turned to her, there were tears in his eyes. I can't believe I almost missed this, he whispered. I can't believe I chose to miss this. But you're here now, Celeste said gently. That's what matters. The visits continued, gradually increasing in frequency and duration. Marcus was punctual, prepared, and present in every way that mattered. He asked Celeste questions about the children's routines, their likes and dislikes, their developmental milestones. He attended a parenting class for fathers. He read books on child development. Slowly, tentatively, the children began to form a bond with him. They started asking when Marcus was coming to visit again. They showed him their artwork and their new accomplishments. And Marcus, to his credit, showed up for all of it. 3 months after the wedding, Celeste invited Marcus to join them for Thanksgiving dinner at her home. It would be the first time he'd been in her personal space, the first time he'd see the life she'd built in its entirety. When he arrived, she could see the shock on his face as he took in the beautiful home in Buckhead, the tasteful furnishings, the evidence of success and stability everywhere. Her mother, Lorraine, greeted him with cool politeness, making it clear that he was there on sufferance and that one wrong move would not be tolerated. But as the afternoon progressed, something shifted. Marcus was humble, respectful, and genuinely engaged with everyone. He helped with dishes without being asked. He played with the children and listened to their excited chatter about preschool and their friends. He asked Lorraine about her life and actually listened to her answers. At one point, Celeste found him standing alone in the living room, looking at the photos on the mantel. They were pictures of the children at various ages, milestones he'd missed, first birthdays, first steps, first days of preschool. I should be in these pictures, he said quietly as she approached. I should have been there for all of this. Yes. Not you should have, Celeste agreed, but you can be in the pictures going forward. You can be there for what comes next. Marcus turned to her, and she saw genuine transformation in his eyes. This wasn't the arrogant, ambitious man who'd left her 3 years ago. This was someone who'd been broken down and rebuilt, someone who'd confronted his own failings and was genuinely trying to do better. Celeste, I need to tell you something, he said. I know you've given me this chance because of the kids, not because of me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness or your friendship, but I want you to know that watching you, seeing the mother you are, the businesswoman you are, the person you've become, it's humbling. You're remarkable. You always were, but I was too self-absorbed to see it. Thank you, Celeste said simply. I don't know. I also want you to know that I'm not trying to get back together or anything like that, he added quickly. I know that ship has sailed. I burned that bridge myself, but I hope that maybe eventually we can be friends. Real friends. Co-parents who actually like and respect each other. I'd like that, Celeste said, and she meant it. As the holidays approached, Celeste found herself in an unexpected position. The viral story of Marcus's wedding had attracted media attention, and several outlets wanted to interview her about LearnPath technologies, her journey as a single mother, and her unexpected confrontation with her ex-husband. Her PR team at LearnPath advised her to do select interviews to control the narrative and highlight the company's mission. She agreed to 3 interviews, one with a major education publication, one with a women's entrepreneurship magazine, and one with a popular podcast focused on single parenthood and career success. In each interview, she was careful to focus on the positive aspects of her journey rather than dwelling on Marcus's abandonment. When my marriage ended, I was 6 months pregnant and terrified, she told the podcast host. But sometimes our biggest challenges become our greatest catalysts for growth. I had to dig deep and find a strength I didn't know I had. And in doing that, I discovered capabilities I might never have explored if my life had gone according to plan. The education publication was more interested in LearnPath's impact. Celeste spoke passionately about the adaptive learning algorithms, the data showing improved student outcomes, and the company's mission to ensure every child had access to personalized education, regardless of their school's resources. We've seen struggling students gain 2 grade levels in reading comprehension in a single year, she explained, her eyes lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. We've seen kids who were disengaged and falling behind suddenly become excited about learning because the platform adapts to their individual needs and learning style. That's what drives me every day. The women's magazine wanted to know how she balanced it all: single motherhood of triplets, running a multi-million-dollar company, and maintaining her sanity. Celeste laughed at that question. Balance is a myth, she said honestly. Some days I'm a better CEO than I am a mother. Some days I'm a better mother than I am a CEO. The key is giving yourself grace and building a support system. I have an incredible team at LearnPath who share my vision and can carry things forward when I need to focus on my children. I have family who step in to help with childcare. I have friends who remind me to take care of myself. Nobody does this alone, and pretending you can is a recipe for burnout. The interviews generated even more positive attention for both Celeste personally and for LearnPath Technologies. Several school districts that had been on the fence about adopting the platform reached out to start pilot programs. Investors who'd been watching the company's growth expressed renewed interest in future funding rounds. Jeremiah called her after the podcast interview aired, laughing. You know what's funny? And we've been trying to get this kind of media attention for 2 years, and all it took was you showing up to your ex's wedding and accidentally going viral. I didn't accidentally do anything, Celeste corrected him with a smile. But I see your point. Though I'd prefer if people focused more on what we're building and less on my personal drama. They are focusing on what we're building, Jeremiah assured her. Your personal story just makes it more compelling. People connect with authentic human experiences. You're not some faceless tech entrepreneur. You're a real woman who overcame real challenges and built something meaningful. That resonates. As Christmas approached, Celeste faced a new decision. Marcus had asked if he could give the children Christmas presents and possibly spend part of Christmas Day with them. It would mean including him in a family tradition that had been just hers for the past 3 years. She discussed it with her mother and Nadine over coffee one morning while the children were at preschool. What does your gut tell you? Lorraine asked. Not your head, not your heart, your gut. Celeste thought about it. My gut says he's proven himself so far. He's been consistent, reliable, and genuinely engaged with the kids. They ask about him now. They light up when they see him. And Christmas is about family, right? Whether I like it or not, he is their father. Then I think you have your answer, her mother said. But it's your home, baby. You get to set the boundaries. If you want him there for an hour to watch them open presents, that's fine. If you want him there all day, that's fine too. Just make sure you're doing what feels right for you and the children, not what you think you should do. Celeste invited Marcus for Christmas morning from 9 to noon. He could watch the children open presents, have breakfast with them, and participate in their morning traditions. But the afternoon and evening would remain family time with her side of the family. When Christmas morning arrived, the house was filled with the warm smell of cinnamon rolls and hot chocolate. The tree was surrounded by carefully wrapped presents, and the children were practically vibrating with excitement. When Marcus arrived promptly at 9 o'clock, carrying even more presents, the triplets rushed to greet him. Marcus! Marcus! Did you see? Santa came! He ate all the cookies we left him! Malachi shouted, tugging on Marcus's hand. And he left presents, Amar added, bouncing on her toes. Zion, always more observant, noticed the bags Marcus was carrying. Did you bring presents too? I might have, Marcus said with a grin, setting the bags down carefully. Watching Marcus interact with the children, Celeste felt a complex mix of emotions. There was still some residual hurt and anger from the past, probably would be for a long time, but there was also something that might have been forgiveness starting to take root. Marcus was genuinely trying. He'd shown up consistently for 4 months now, never missing a visit, never being late, always engaged and present. As the children tore into their presents with enthusiastic abandon, Marcus caught Celeste's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." She nodded, acknowledging the gesture. Later, while the children were engrossed in building an elaborate Lego set that Marcus had brought, he helped Celeste clean up the wrapping paper and debris. They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes before Marcus spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," he said quietly, "about the wedding, about everything that's happened since. And I realized something. You could have destroyed me that day, Celeste. You could have come in angry and vindictive, made a huge scene, turned my wedding into a complete disaster. But you didn't. You were dignified and graceful, even when you were calling me out on my failures." "Why?" Celeste considered the question as she folded a piece of wrapping paper. "Because revenge doesn't actually make you feel better," she said finally. "I thought about it, believe me. I thought about all the ways I could hurt you the way you hurt me. But what would that have accomplished? It wouldn't have changed the past. It wouldn't have made me a better person, and it definitely wouldn't have been a good example for my children." "Our children," Marcus corrected gently. Celeste smiled. "Our children. You're right." She paused, then continued. "I learned something important after you left, Marcus. I learned that holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only hurts you. So I chose to let it go, not for your sake, but for mine, for theirs." "That's incredibly mature. It's incredibly necessary," Celeste countered. "I couldn't build a successful company and raise 3 healthy children while carrying around all that bitterness. I had to put it down and move forward. That didn't mean I forgave you right away or trusted you. It just meant I refused to let what you did define the rest of my life." Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching the children play. "I talked to my therapist about you a lot," he admitted. "About the marriage, about why I left, about my fears and insecurities. And she helped me see that I was running from myself more than I was running from you. I was terrified of becoming my father, so I became exactly like him. The irony isn't lost on me." "Are you still in therapy?" "Yeah, twice a week. It's helping." He turned to look at her directly. "Celeste, I know I've apologized before, but I want to say it again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for leaving you when you were pregnant. I'm sorry for missing the first 3 years of their lives. I'm sorry for being selfish and cowardly and convinced that my career was more important than my family. I'm sorry for hurting you." "I appreciate that," Celeste said, "and I accept your apology. But Marcus, you need to understand something. I've forgiven you, mostly because holding on to anger was exhausting and counterproductive. But forgiving you doesn't mean I've forgotten what happened. It doesn't mean I trust you completely. Trust is earned through consistent action over time, and you're still in the process of earning that. I understand, and I'll keep showing up, keep proving myself for as long as it takes." As the morning progressed, Celeste found herself enjoying Marcus's presence more than she'd expected. He was good with the children, patient and playful. While he helped Malachi when he got frustrated with a difficult Lego piece. He read Amara 3 stories in a row, doing different voices for each character. He spent 20 minutes discussing dinosaur facts with Zion, genuinely interested in everything the boy had to say. When noon arrived and it was time for Marcus to leave, the children protested. "But we're not done playing," Zion complained. "Can't Marcus stay for lunch?" Amara asked, her lower lip trembling. Celeste looked at Marcus, then at her children's disappointed faces, and made a decision. How about Marcus stays for lunch, and then he needs to go so we can do our afternoon activities with Grandma and Aunt Nadine? The children cheered, and Marcus looked genuinely touched. Are you sure? I don't want to overstep. It's fine, Celeste assured him. The kids want you here. And it's Christmas. Besides, I made way too much food. Lunch was surprisingly pleasant. Lorraine remained somewhat cool toward Marcus, but even she seemed to be thawing slightly as she watched him interact with her grandchildren. Nadine kept giving Celeste meaningful looks that seemed to say, is this really happening? But overall, the meal was filled with laughter and good food and the simple joy of family. After Marcus left, Nadine pulled Celeste aside while the children were showing their grandmother their new toys. So, Nadine said, her eyebrows raised. That was interesting. It was nice, Celeste admitted. I know it's complicated, but seeing him with the kids, seeing how hard he's trying, I don't know. Maybe people really can change. Maybe, Nadine said carefully. Or maybe he's just really good at showing up when it's convenient and fun, like Christmas morning. The real test will be when it's hard, when one of the kids is sick at 2 in the morning, when there's a school emergency and he has to leave work, when the novelty wears off and it's just the daily grind of parenting. You're right, Celeste acknowledged, which is why I'm still being cautious. But I can't deny that so far, he's exceeded my expectations. As the new year began, Marcus continued to prove himself. When Amara came down with a nasty stomach flu in January, Marcus showed up at Celeste's house at midnight with supplies, children's electrolyte drinks, bland crackers, and fresh sheets for when the bedding inevitably needed changing. He stayed up with Celeste through the night, sure helping to comfort Amara and clean up after episodes of sickness. You didn't have to come, Celeste told him at 3 in the morning as they changed Amara's sheets for the third time, while the little girl dozed fitfully. Yes, I did, Marcus said simply. She's my daughter. This is what parents do. In February, when Zion's preschool called to say he'd been injured on the playground, Marcus left an important meeting and arrived at the school at the same time as Celeste. Together, they comforted their frightened son while the nurse examined his sprained wrist. I'm sorry I interrupted your work, Celeste said later, as they drove separately to the urgent care clinic to get Zion's wrist x-rayed. Don't be, Marcus replied. There will always be another meeting. But there's only one Zion, and he needed his parents. And that's not an interruption. That's life. These moments accumulated, building a foundation of trust that had been completely absent before. Celeste found herself actually looking forward to Marcus's visits, not just tolerating them for the children's sake. They developed an easy co-parenting relationship, communicating regularly about the children's needs, schedules, and milestones. In March, LearnPath Technologies reached a major milestone. The platform was now being used in over 10,000 schools across all 50 states. The company's valuation had climbed to $63 million. Celeste was featured on the cover of a major business magazine with the headline, From Single Mom to Tech Titan, The Celeste Morgan Story. Marcus sent her a text when the magazine came out. Saw the article. I'm incredibly proud of you. You're changing the world. Celeste smiled at the message. 6 months ago, such a text from Marcus would have felt patronizing or false. Now it just felt like genuine acknowledgement from someone who was becoming a friend. But the biggest change came in April, when Marcus asked if he could talk to Celeste about something important. They met for coffee at a quiet cafe while the children were at preschool. I've been offered a position in Atlanta, Marcus told her, vice president of sales for a pharmaceutical company based in Midtown. It's actually a step down from my current role in New York, and the salary's lower. But it would mean I could be here, really be here, for the kids. I could have them overnight on weekends. I could be at their school events. I could be the father they deserve. Celeste was stunned. In Marcus's career had always been his primary focus, the thing he'd sacrificed everything for. For him to voluntarily take a step back was significant. What about your current job? I thought you were being groomed for a senior VP position. I was, Marcus confirmed. But I realized something. That VP position would mean even longer hours, more travel, less time for anything else. And what's the point of all that success if I'm still missing out on my children's lives? I already made that mistake once. I'm not making it again. Have you accepted the Atlanta position? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Make sure you were comfortable with me being here more often, being more involved in their daily lives. Celeste studied him carefully. This was a huge decision, one that would fundamentally change the dynamic they'd established. But looking at Marcus, she saw only sincerity and determination. I think the kids would love having you here more often, she said slowly. And if you're serious about being a real co-parent, not just a weekend visitor, then yes, I'm comfortable with it. But Marcus, you have to be sure. You can't move here, get bored or frustrated in 6 months, and then bail. That would devastate them. I'm sure, Marcus said without hesitation. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He took the Atlanta job. In May, he moved into a spacious apartment in Buckhead, just 15 minutes from Celeste's house. The apartment had 3 bedrooms, one for him and one for each of the children when they stayed over. He furnished it with help from Celeste, making sure to include things the kids loved. A reading nook with floor pillows for Amara, got a dinosaur-themed bedroom for Zion, and a music corner with various instruments for Malachi. The first weekend the children stayed overnight at Marcus's apartment, Celeste felt unexpectedly emotional. She'd spent 3 years being their only parent, their only constant. Letting them go, even for one night, felt strange and scary. They'll be fine, Nadine assured her as they watched Marcus buckle the excited children into his car. And more importantly, you'll be fine. When's the last time you had a weekend to yourself? Never, Celeste admitted. Not since they were born. Exactly, so go do something for yourself. Sleep in, get a massage, binge watch that show everyone keeps talking about. Remember what it's like to be Celeste, not just mom. Taking Nadine's advice, Celeste spent that Saturday doing exactly nothing productive. She slept until 9 o'clock, something that hadn't happened in years. She took a long bath. She read a novel for pleasure instead of work. She got her nails done, and she realized how much she'd needed this break, even though she missed her children terribly. Marcus sent her photos and updates throughout the weekend. The kids making pancakes for breakfast, flour everywhere, a trip to the zoo, building a blanket fort in the living room, story time before bed. Through those photos, Celeste could see the bond deepening between father and children, and despite her initial fears, it filled her with joy rather than jealousy. When Marcus brought the children back Sunday evening, they were tired but happy, talking over each other about all the fun things they'd done with their daddy. "And a thank you," Celeste told Marcus quietly while the children ran inside to show Grandma Lorraine a stuffed animal Marcus had bought them at the zoo. "For what?" "For showing up, for really being here, for being the father they deserve." She paused, then added, "I never thought we'd get here, you know. 6 months ago, I barely trusted you to be alone with them for 2 hours. Now you're having overnight visits and they're calling you daddy, and it feels right." Marcus's eyes got misty. "Hearing them call me daddy is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Better than any promotion or salary or achievement. Nothing compares to it." As spring turned to summer, the co-parenting arrangement settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children spent every other weekend with Marcus and one evening during the week. Marcus attended their preschool graduation in June, sitting proudly beside Celeste as Zion, Amara, and Malachi received their certificates and sang songs they'd learned. In July, they took the children to Disney World together, their first trip as a co-parenting team. It was Celeste's idea, though she'd been nervous about suggesting it. "I was thinking," she'd said during one of their coffee meetups, "the kids have been asking about Disney World, and I thought maybe if you were interested, we could take them together. Split the costs, share the parenting duties, make it a special trip for them." Marcus had agreed enthusiastically. They booked a villa with separate bedrooms, planned the itinerary together, and made sure to coordinate so that each child got special one-on-one time with each parent during the trip. The vacation was magical. The children's faces when they met the Disney characters, their excitement on the rides, their wonder at the fireworks shows, it was everything Celeste had hoped for. But what surprised her most was how much she enjoyed having Marcus there to share it with. When Malachi got overwhelmed by the crowds and had a meltdown, Marcus was the one who scooped him up and found a quiet corner to help him calm down, while Celeste took the other two on a nearby ride. When Amara was too scared to go on a roller coaster that Zion wanted to try, Celeste took Zion while Marcus stayed with Amara, and they found a different, gentler ride that she loved. They worked together seamlessly, anticipating each other's moves, communicating without words the way good partners do. One evening after the children had fallen asleep, exhausted from a full day of park adventures, Celeste and Marcus sat on the villa's balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the distant fireworks from the Magic Kingdom. "This was a good idea," Marcus said. "Thank you for suggesting it." "Thank you for being here," Celeste replied. "The kids are having the time of their lives, and I couldn't have done this alone." "Well, I could have, but it wouldn't have been nearly as fun or as manageable." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Marcus spoke again. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course. Being here with you and the kids, doing this family vacation thing, it's shown me what I could have had all along if I hadn't been so stupid and scared. And I want you to know that I don't expect anything from you, Celeste. I know we're not getting back together. I know I destroyed that possibility when I left. But I want you to know that you're the best person I've ever known, and I'm grateful every day that you're giving me this chance to be a father." Celeste felt tears prick her eyes. "Marcus, you've changed. Really changed. I see it in how you are with the kids, in the choices you're making, in the man you've become. And I want you to know that I've forgiven you. Completely. Not partially or conditionally. I've let go of the hurt and the anger, and I genuinely want the best for you, even if that's not with me." "Thank you," Marcus said, his own voice thick with emotion. "That means more than you know." When they returned to Atlanta, life continued its steady rhythm. But something had shifted between Celeste and Marcus. When they'd moved from cautious co-parents to genuine friends. They had dinner together with the kids once a week. They attended the children's activities together. They celebrated birthdays and milestones as a team. In September, for the triplets' 4th birthday, they threw a joint party at a local children's museum that both of them helped plan and host. Watching Marcus help kids with science experiments and Celeste organize the birthday cake ceremony, several guests commented on what a great team they made. Lorraine pulled Celeste aside at one point during the party. "Baby, I need to say something, and you're going to want to tell me to mind my own business. But I'm your mother, so I'm saying it anyway." "Okay," Celeste said, bracing herself. "Marcus has proven himself. I never thought I'd say this, but he's earned his place in this family. He's been consistent, reliable, and genuinely committed to those children. And more than that, I see the way you two are together. You're happy. You laugh together. You work together beautifully. I'm not saying you should rush into anything, but maybe it's time to consider whether there could be something more there again." "Mama, I'm not saying it has to happen," Lorraine interrupted. "I'm just saying don't close the door completely just because of what happened in the past. People change. Situations change. Just keep an open heart, baby. That's all I'm saying." Celeste thought about her mother's words often over the next few weeks. Was there still something between her and Marcus beyond co-parenting and friendship? Sometimes she caught him looking at her in a way that seemed like more than platonic affection. Sometimes she found herself noticing things about him. The way he laughed at Malachi's terrible knock-knock jokes, the patience he showed when teaching Zion to ride a bike, the gentleness in his hands when he braided Amara's hair. But she also remembered the pain of his abandonment, the long, lonely nights when she'd cried herself to sleep while pregnant and alone. The struggle of those early months with 3 newborns and no partner to share the load. In October, Marcus asked if they could talk privately again. Once more, they met at their usual coffee shop. "I've been thinking a lot lately," Marcus began, "about us, about our family, about the future." Celeste's heart began to race. "Okay, I know what I'm about to say might be unwelcome or premature, and if it is, just tell me and we'll never speak of it again. But I need to say it because I'll regret it forever if I don't." He took a deep breath. "Celeste, I love you. I never stopped loving you, even when I was too stupid and scared to stay. And I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I hurt you in ways that might be unforgivable, but I also know that we're good together. We're better together than we are apart. And I'm not the same man who left you. I've done the work. I've faced my fears. I've proven I can show up and stay, even when it's hard. So I'm asking, Is there any chance you could ever consider giving us another try? Celeste sat very still, processing his words. Her mind was racing through 1,000 thoughts and emotions. Fear, hope, doubt, or possibility. I don't know, she said honestly. Marcus, you're right that you've changed. You've proven yourself as a father, absolutely. But romantic partnership is different than co-parenting. It requires a different kind of trust, a different level of vulnerability. And I'm not sure I'm ready to make myself vulnerable to you again. I understand, Marcus said, though his disappointment was evident. I had to ask, but I understand. But, Celeste continued, I'm not saying no forever. I'm saying I need time. I need to see if this version of you, this committed, reliable, emotionally available version, is permanent. Because the kids are already attached to you now. If we tried a romantic relationship and it failed, if you bailed again, it wouldn't just hurt me. Oh, it would devastate them. I would never. You said that before, Celeste reminded him gently, and I believe that you mean it now. But I need more time to be absolutely certain. Can you give me that? I'll give you whatever you need, Marcus promised. I'll wait as long as it takes. Over the next several months, Celeste paid careful attention to Marcus's actions and choices. She watched how he handled stress at his new job. She noticed how he responded when parenting got difficult. She observed how he treated other people, from waitstaff at restaurants to strangers in the park. What she saw impressed her. Marcus had truly transformed. He was patient where he'd once been quick to anger. He was present where he'd once been distracted. He was selfless where he'd once been self-absorbed. And most importantly, he was consistent. Now, month after month, he showed up exactly as he'd promised. In December, 1 year after the infamous wedding, Celeste received an unexpected envelope in the mail. It was another invitation, this time from Vivian St. Clair, or rather, Vivian St. Clair Johnson. She'd gotten married again, and she was inviting Celeste to the wedding. The note inside read, Dear Celeste, I know this might seem strange, but I wanted to invite you to my wedding. After everything that happened last year, you'd think I'd never want to see you again. But actually, you did me a favor. You showed me who Marcus really was before I wasted years of my life with him. My fiancé, Robert, is everything Marcus never was. Honest, present, and genuine. I'd love for you to help me celebrate this new chapter. No hard feelings. Sure, Aunt Vivian. Celeste laughed when she read it, then showed it to Marcus during their weekly family dinner. Are you going to go? He asked, amused. I think I might, Celeste said. It takes a lot of grace and maturity to send an invitation like that. Plus, I'm genuinely happy she found someone good. Want me to watch the kids? Marcus offered. And that small offer, that simple gesture of support, was what finally convinced Celeste. Because the old Marcus would never have offered. The old Marcus would have been threatened or jealous or made it somehow about him. But this Marcus was secure enough to support her in attending his ex-fiancée's wedding because he understood it was about grace and closure, not about him at all. On New Year's Eve, as another year came to a close, Celeste and Marcus were both at her house watching the children play with their cousins. The adults were gathered in the kitchen, preparing snacks and drinks for the midnight celebration the kids were determined to stay awake for. Marcus pulled Celeste aside, away from the crowd, into the quiet of her home office. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Celeste's heart skipped a beat. Marcus, it's not what you think, he said quickly, opening the box to reveal a beautiful bracelet. I wanted to give you something to mark this year, the year we became a real family, the year I proved I could be the father our children deserve, the year you gave me grace I didn't earn and a chance I didn't deserve. The bracelet was delicate white gold with 3 small charms, a tiny Z, A, and an M for each of their children. It's beautiful, Celeste said, genuinely touched. Let me, Marcus said, fastening it around her wrist. As his fingers brushed her skin, Celeste felt a flutter of something that had been dormant for a long time. She looked up at him, and their eyes met. And in that moment, Celeste knew. She knew that she'd fallen in love with him again, or maybe that she'd never really fallen out of love, just buried it under hurt and self-protection. She knew that this version of Marcus, the one who'd been shaped by loss and humility and genuine transformation, was someone she could trust with her heart. Marcus, she said softly. Ask me again. Ask you what? Ask me if there's a chance for us. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by hope so bright it almost hurt to see. Celeste Morgan, is there any chance you could give us another try? Yes, she whispered. Yes, I think there is. The kiss that followed was gentle and sweet and full of promise. It was a kiss that acknowledged the past but didn't dwell on it. A kiss that celebrated the present and looked forward to the future. From the kitchen, they heard Nadine's voice calling out, "It's almost midnight. Where are Celeste and Marcus?" They broke apart laughing. "We should get back," Celeste said. "Wait." Marcus took both her hands in his. "I need you to know something first. I'm not going to rush this. I'm not going to pressure you. We'll take this as slow as you need. And if you ever have doubts or fears or need to step back, you tell me. Our family is too important to risk by moving too fast." "Agreed," Celeste said. "We take this slow. And we keep the kids' well-being as our top priority. And we communicate honestly, even when it's hard." They returned to the kitchen hand in hand, just as the countdown to midnight began. The children were jumping around excitedly, barely able to contain their energy. 10, 9, 8. Celeste looked around at her family, her mother, her sister, her beautiful children, and Marcus. This wasn't the life she'd imagined when she was younger, planning her perfect future. It was messy and complicated and born from pain and struggle. But it was also beautiful and real and full of love. 7, 6, 5. She thought about the woman she'd been 3.5 years ago, sobbing in that small apartment as she packed baby clothes alone. She wished she could tell that woman that everything would be okay, better than okay, that the pain would transform into strength, that the struggle would reveal capabilities she didn't know she had, that the ending of one chapter would lead to the beginning of something extraordinary. 4, 3, 2, as the crowd shouted, 1, Happy New Year! And noisemakers filled the air with sound. Marcus pulled Celeste close and kissed her again, this time with their children and family watching, cheering them on. Later that night, after the celebration had wound down and the children were finally asleep, Celeste stood in her bedroom looking at the invitation from Marcus's wedding that she'd kept in her desk drawer. She'd held on to it as a reminder of her strength, of the moment she'd reclaimed her power and her story. Now, she carefully placed it in a box with other mementos from the past year. Photos of Marcus with the children, ticket stubs from their Disney trip, the magazine cover featuring her success story. These were pieces of their journey, evidence of transformation and growth and the power of second chances. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Thank you for tonight. Thank you for us. I won't let you down." Celeste smiled and typed back, "I know you won't. See you tomorrow for breakfast with the kids?" Wouldn't miss it for the world. And as Celeste climbed into bed, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. Her life wasn't perfect, and she knew there would be challenges ahead. But she had built something remarkable from the ashes of her broken marriage. She had 3 incredible children. She had a successful company changing lives. She had family and friends who loved her. And now, cautiously but hopefully, she had the possibility of love again, with someone who had finally learned what truly mattered. The revenge she'd inadvertently gotten at Marcus's wedding hadn't been about humiliating him or proving her worth. It had been about showing up as her authentic self, strong and successful and unbroken. And in doing so, she'd created the possibility for real forgiveness, genuine transformation, and a second chance neither of them had expected. As she drifted off to sleep, Celeste thought about all the viewers who had followed her story, who had cheered for her triumph and celebrated her success. She hoped they understood the real lesson, that sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. Sometimes the best outcome is grace, forgiveness, and the courage to remain open to possibility even after you've been hurt. Because in the end, Marcus hadn't just been invited to his own wedding to witness her success. He'd been invited to witness the power of resilience, the beauty of transformation, and the possibility that people can change if they're willing to do the hard work. And that, Celeste thought as sleep claimed her, was worth more than any revenge could ever be.